What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. What is going on, everybody? How about those Chiefs? 12-1, win at home, as they've done every time they've played this year. They have not lost a game at Arrowhead. Take out the Chargers in a valiant effort, down, I think, 13-0 at half, and come storming back in the second half to take the lead. The fighting Jim Harbaughs and Justin Herbert with a bad ankle, hurt knee, missing his running back. But they battled, but they just came up a little short because Mahomes made a play when he had to ice the game to his main man, Travis Kelce. Some of you may have heard of him, one of the all-time great tight ends who's also dating Taylor Swift. And the Chiefs win. And now they look with the Bills losing. I mean, probably just a win or two away from icing this thing as the number one seed. So we'll dive into that. And we'll also dive into some weekend thoughts. A lot going on today from we'll just, I mean, there's a million things going on from Cousins. Something I saw, I go around the morning on my 4-box on the big TV and listen to different audio depending on the ebb and flow of different games. And I was watching the Falcons game when Greg Olsen said a couple things in regards to Kirk Cousins that I'm going to have to disagree on. Bryce Young continues to play really well. It's crazy, wide receivers, how even when you set franchise records with 9 straight wins, your star wide receiver doesn't like when he's not getting the ball. The Eagles tie a franchise record for 9 straight wins, and A.J. Brown's not happy because the passing game sucks. And the Giants, I got a theory about something I saw today flying around in New Jersey as the Giants lose another game to the New Orleans Saints. Then probably just a couple quick things on college football. But what a weekend. I've been watching football. Started Friday night, Boise State, all Saturday, all Sunday, till about 10 minutes ago. And now we have one more game, Monday Night Football, which happens to be the Dallas Cowboys. So get fired up. Woo! But before we dive into some football, I got to tell you about my friends, my partners. I had a family member text me today and said, listen, what's your promo code for that app, Game Time, the number one ticketing app in America? I said, oh, it's promo code John. I'm like, what are you looking to do? She's like, well, I want to get young David, who happens to be my nephew, tickets to go to the Monster Cup car rally in Sacramento. He would love it. I said, that's right up David's alley. We'll just download the app, promo code John, get yourself some Monster Truck rally tickets. And here's the thing. Game Time has it all. Do you want to go to see? I had another buddy text me like, I just booked my tickets. I'm going to South Bend, going to Notre Dame. You want to go to a college football playoff game? Do you want to go to a monster truck rally? Do you want to go to a concert and see your favorite artist? Do you want to go to a comedy show and laugh a little bit? I just watched Jesselnick's latest Netflix special a couple days ago. Pretty funny. If you want to go see anything, you just download this app. You type in what you want to see. You type in the venue, wherever you want to go, and it has you covered. By price point, you can pick and choose. Doesn't get any easier, and I've used them all. It's by far the best. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. It's funny. I don't remember a championship team, like a team with legit resume, 3 Super Bowls in the last 5 years, being more criticized about winning in my life than the Chiefs. Now, we have seen paper champs before. Teams pump their chest. It's like, well, you haven't really done anything. I remember in the peak of the Warriors dynasty, it was the Houston Rockets. And Daryl Morey used to get on as high and mighty about James Harden being better than Michael Jordan and how their statistics and the percentages, chances of them winning the titles, like, you're not going to win it, 1. And 2, like, let's pump the brakes before you actually do anything. But anytime you see a squad full of this many good players, one of the greatest coaches of all time, continue to win games, and the only thing I ever hear and the only thing I ever read, and when I say read, I mean on Instagram or Twitter, is just negativity surrounding the Chiefs. And then you look up, they're 12-1, like the Bills did last week. They've clinched the division on December 8th. They have not lost a home game at Arrowhead. The Bills lose today. So now the Bills and the Steelers both have 3 losses, and they still play the Steelers. If they beat, they basically will ensure that they're going to be the home field, the number 1 overall seed for the playoffs. You go, listen, is this team as good as some of their previous teams? Of course not. But is what they're doing right now fucking insane? It's crazy. I mean, it feels like every single game comes down to literally the last possession. But that happens to a lot of NFL teams. That happens in a lot of NFL games. The difference with the Chiefs than the majority of other teams is they literally win every game. And I get it, because when you get someone ultra successful, whether it's an athlete, whether it's a team, whether it's an individual in business, the haters are going to come. Why? Because it's so much easier to hate than go, this is remarkable what is happening. This is kind of unprecedented. Since Peyton Manning's arm stopped working and he had to retire / no one wanted him anymore, the Chiefs haven't just dominated this division. They've dominated the AFC. And now you're looking at a team. Again, I'm not acting like this is the 07 Patriots in the sense of it's like, how are they going to lose? Because every week you're watching it, in the back of your mind, you think they might lose, right? Their margin for error is very slim. Yet they always win, and they're going to have home field advantage. So here's what I know. That, yes, this team's going to struggle to score. And if they get back to the Super Bowl, they're probably going to have to win multiple playoff games by scoring in the high teens, low 20s. They're not going to win a game 35-30. They're not built to play like that. They literally do not play like that. But at home, in January, when they're the 1 seed, meaning they only got to win 2 games, good luck trying to beat them. And I've been saying, it does feel like this is the year. And just a couple weeks ago when Buffalo beat them and you start looking at the big picture, you go, well, maybe they would have to, maybe they wouldn't end up getting the number 1 overall seed. But then you have the swing of the last 6 hours where the Bills, I don't want to say lose a heartbreaker because they were kind of always down and Josh tried to drag them back. Laid an egg early in the game that set them back and caused them to lose the game. And then Josh accounts for 5 touchdowns and you lose and you're kind of scratching your head. And then the Chiefs are winning 13-0. Then all of a sudden they don't have the lead. They're down 14-13. You're thinking like, God, this is the reason Brian Day always loses. Look at this Harbaugh team. I don't know who he's throwing to. McConkey's nowhere to be found. It's starting running backs at home, watching the game on television. He's got Mack and Bosa giving it all he's got. He's got some young linebackers. He's just got a tough squad. You're like, this is fucking Jim Harbaugh. Tough guy, just winning with grit and toughness. But it's like they're kind of the poor man's version of the Chiefs. Herbert's really good, not quite as good as Mahomes. And they just don't have as many playmakers as the Chiefs. And the other difference is like, you're just not going to beat them at Arrowhead. So while I've been saying and pretty consistent, it does feel like this is the year the Chiefs lose in the second or the AFC Championship game. And then you watch today and you go, yeah, I don't know. Like, they're going to be at home. I would imagine, unless they have a major injury in one, leading up to one of the games, they're going to be favored in both the games. And playing at Arrowhead in these conditions, they are very comfortable in those moments and in that spot. And sometimes the other opponent feels a little uncomfortable. So I just think what Andy, what Veach, what Mahomes, down the stretch of that game, on that game-winning drive, of just being able, the first couple of plays of that drive was like incompletion. I started thinking like, are they going to have to punt? that crossed my mind. Are they going to have to punt? Then all of a sudden he pulls a couple plays out of his arse. That's what the guy does. I think both these 2 quarterbacks tonight, like, if you appreciate football, if you admire football, Like, this is not going to be some Big Ten 38-35 shootout. That's not how these teams play. But if you can't watch those two guys play in big spots and go, those two guys are badasses. Those two guys could play for my team any day. And I get Mahomes has a lot of hate just because people are tired of him. But like, you can't watch him and go, this guy's remarkable. I mean, that game-winning play, even Collinsworth said it. For him to juke that guy out running full speed at him, cut back, and then throw the little lollipop to Kelce to ice the game. I mean, that's why the guy's got 3 championships and is going to be favored this year to get another one. Now, does that mean it's going to happen? Brady won 6 and he lost a lot of time in the playoffs. Hell, he got beat at home by the Rex Ryan Jets. So you're not guaranteed anything. But the championship medal, the championship pedigree, their just ability to make huge plays, because that's how you win all these tight one-score games, 110 of them, right? That come down to the final drive. It's because they make a play or two when they have to, on 3rd and 5, on 3rd and 6. I mean, what Andy did on that final play, I guess it wasn't technically the final play, the play before they started kneeling it, is he easily could have just ran it. He could have just ran it and taken off 40 seconds and given it back to the Chargers with like, whatever, a $110 and go, Justin, can you beat us with this random tight end 84, who's actually looks not bad? Johnston, the TCU kid, who actually made some plays, had a touchdown tonight. Palmer, who kind of like as well. But can you beat us on the road? Can you drive 40 or 50 yards? I don't know if you can. And one of the reasons that benefited the Chiefs on that final drive is I don't quite understand what Dicker, the kicker, was doing. You know, they kind of got a little cute. He tried to hit the line drive. It landed way too early. They get it at the 40. I mean, that's a pretty massive mistake, especially with an offense who I still believe would have gotten field goal range. But if they didn't get as close as they did and they were forced to kick like a 48, 50-yard field goal with that guy, easily could have missed. I mean, that guy, I have to look up exactly what the kick was, 28, 30 yards? I mean, should have missed. The doink, your heart kind of drops, and then you kind of see it once it kind of bounced in, even before they put their hands up. But what a play by Herbert. And 9 straight titles. You know, we talk so much about culture. We talk so much about, you know, drafting the right type guys, building the right type team. Listen, if you like football, I don't see how you don't admire everything the Chiefs stand for, how they do it, who they're doing it with, right? It's one thing when you just have a team that's unfair. It happens sometimes in baseball, and we'll talk about that contract that happened tonight a little bit later. But you go, this is stupid. I understood why everyone hated the Kevin Durant Warriors. You're like, this isn't even fair. That's not this Chiefs team. I mean, he's got DeAndre Hopkins out there that anyone could have had. Juju Smith, a rookie. He's handing the ball to Samaje Perine and Kareem Hunt. So, and they have multiple defenders on the back end injured. Just awesome. I mean, Andy, these are big moments in a dynasty because it's a huge muscle flex. It's a huge muscle flex. Like it was open for people to steal it, and the Chiefs somehow are going to be the number 1 seed. It's going to be a long flight home for the Bills. And on the flip side of when they came storming back in that game, down 13-0, and kind of understandable. I mean, when I got done recording with Colin, I go out to the living room, and I think it was 3-0. It was 3-0 Chiefs, and Herbert had already, I think, rolled his ankle or something because they had taped it more. Then he got hit in the knee, I think by Bolton, and he's down on the ground. He's limping around. The backup has to come in for a play. He just looks bruised and battered. It's 13-0 at half, and you're like, listen, this got like 20-3 written all over it, where they just kind of choke them out like a boa constrictor. It's just not the Chargers' night. You hold your head high, tough spot, and then they come storming back, and you go, that third quarter, it's like, this is why Ohio State with Ryan Day always gets their ass kicked by this guy and this culture, because they are just simply tougher than you. The toughness that the Chargers have under this guy, it'd be like having me as your bodyguard for like a couple years. I don't really know what I'd be able to do to protect you. And then firing me and getting SEAL Team 6. That's what it has to feel like going like from Brandon Staley to Jim Harbaugh. It has to be one of the single greatest upgrades in the history of sport. Not football, not the NFL. I'm talking sport. How tough this team is, how well coached this team is. They should not be this good. Look who they're playing with. And it all starts with the coach, who is a certified badass. And one thing I think Jim has done these last couple years at Michigan, and you see it now, he's calmed down a lot. He used to be more of a wild card up and down. And he does feel, I'm not saying he's Andy in terms of his body language and the way he carries himself, but he's much closer to that than he is to what, he used to be like a Kirby Smart, like what Nick Saban was when he was younger, just a maniac on the sideline. And he's calmed down. And I think his team reflects it. And like I said with Mahomes, if you watch Justin Herbert play and your takeaway isn't, this guy is freaking awesome, we're not watching the same sport. If we were having beer sitting at a bar, I don't know if I'd be able to talk to you for long. And I get it. We argue over players. It's what makes this all so fun. And some players you can have legitimate arguments about. Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy. But like at this point, if you watch Herbert play under Harbaugh, I don't know what the argument is. Obviously, he's an elite talent. His toughness is proving this year to be second to none. And then his just straight ability on the road in Kansas City, it's like, holy fuck, this guy is good. To me, this franchise, like, they're going to have problems. Like, probably not going to be able to win a playoff game. It's going to be very difficult depending on the matchup. Maybe they can keep it close for a half, but they're not going to have enough on offense. To me, if you watch the Penn State-Oregon game, first round, if you're drafting like pick early 20s, Tyler Warren, the tight end, has the Chargers written all over them. Can you imagine that guy on that offense? And this draft, one position it's completely loaded with is running backs. When I've talking to scouts, watching football, my guess is there'd be 8 to 10 guys go in the top 100. During that game in the second half, when they were coming back and they're forcing to like give Gus Edwards carries, I Googled their picks. They have all their picks. So to me, in the second or third round, draft one of these running backs. Iowa has one. Washington has one. Ohio State has one. Beside even Genty. The ASU kid. Scattaboo. Get one of these guys. Like, they are a tight end and a running back away from building this team. Like, they're never going to draft wide receivers high. That's not the way Harbaugh operates. And it was so clear at the end of the game when Mac takes out Bosa. It's like, remember when we're like, I wonder what players they're going to get rid of? And it was 4. The 2 receivers and the 2 linemen. It's like, well, yeah, no shit he kept the 2 linemen. Jim Harbaugh. And their defense is the number 1 scoring defense in the NFL. It's awesome. It's really good. And they're going to need some help on offense. McConkey, good pick. Alt, good pick. But they need help at running back. They need, either a big outside wide receiver, which he's just not going to invest high in. I just have a hard time seeing him do that. So if he's not going to do that, take the tight end. And, he looks like 6'6" out there. Give Herbert a massive target. That's what Mahomes has used for, 6-7 years now. So props to the Chargers. The NFL season is rolling along and the contenders are separating from the pack. The one thing that hasn't changed this season, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And it's the number 1 place to bet touchdowns. Long bombs, fades to the end zone, big runs, you name it. We do not care how you get them. We just want to bet touchdowns at DraftKings, and it's the best place to do it. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like a player scoring a touchdown. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your first pick. Here's a reason for new customers to do a touchdown dance on their own. Bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the number 1 place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets. If your bet wins, just bet $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. This last stretch, to me, they just got to win 2 of their last 4 games. They're in the playoffs. They should be able to do that. It doesn't get much more difficult than playing the Chiefs at Arrowhead. They're 8-5. They won 5 games last year. Their next game is the Buccaneers at home. Then they get the Broncos at home. Then they go to the Patriots and to the Raiders. So to me, if they win one of these next 2 games, they're probably sweeping those last two. So they would go 3-1 and they would win 11 games. But I think when you look at their schedule, they're basically a lock for 10 games. And since they like that's an awesome accomplishment. Wild card, and they're going to be a team with Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert that no one's going to want to play. But it's tough for them to run the ball. Not because their offensive line isn't good, not because their team's not tough, because their running backs kind of suck with J.K. Dobbins being at home. And then when they're forced to pass, like it's just difficult. They don't have that much skill. Jim Harbaugh, because of his personality, and he's good at this, he's big at talking a guy up and giving him almost fake confidence. Like Quentin Johnson does not have very good hands, but he clearly is a very skilled player. And Harbaugh all year long has propped him up. And tonight he came through. He's let them down in some games. I wouldn't even say let them down. Balls are going to go through his hands. That's what happens when you don't have great, ability to catch. Some people believe, like, if a wide receiver has questionable hands, they're off the board because literally their job is to catch. I think some people in the scouting world and even coaches, there are like DK Metcalf does not have great hands. Hell, Terrell Owens never had great. To me, there are physical freaks that you make exceptions for. Now, DK went at the end of the second round. Terrell was what, like a third or fourth round pick. Quinn Johnson was drafted in the first round. Now, you do see glimpses of like his size, his physical ability at a touchdown tonight. Like he's very, very talented. But when catching is a coin flip, it can be difficult to rely on a player that probably is your most skilled guy out there. Now, luckily, like they just inherit him. You just keep him around, keep working with him. But he kind of is what it is. Other than that, I'm a sucker. Listen, the Big Ten championship game was really fun. What was the final score? Like 45-40 or 42-38 or whatever it was, and just seeing touchdown after touchdown. Like, listen, I have no problem with those games. I'm a sucker. Maybe it's the football I grew up on in the 90s. Like, I don't mind a game like Sunday night. A game that just feels at any moment, every single player that's tackled is going to need help up off the ground. For the sport that has, officiated and regulated the violence out of it, it's a lot different game than in the 90s and the 2000s. But there are still moments and stretches in games like tonight that just feel like this is a violent game. This is a game where if you're an offensive player, you better have your chin strap buckled in both spots because you are going to get hit. If you're a running back coming downhill, there are going to be 3 people coming downhill at you. Everyone is flying around. And I appreciate that type of football. I don't need every one of my games to be 31-28. I was fine with that. Some might call it ugly football. Some might call no offense. I call that I call that the NFL. So enjoyable. Congrats to the Chiefs. 9 straight AFC titles. And looks like they're headed straight to the number 1 seed again, which is just an incredible accomplishment. Okay, let's get some weekend thoughts. It hit me today at halftime of it was 3-0. I'm looking for the final score. Jacksonville won 10-6. You have to be a psychopath. If you are a fan of one of these teams, it is what it is. You watch your team. Even if you gamble, like you're probably gambling on other games as well, you don't need to have that game on television. If you watched the Jags Titans in its entirety and you're not a fan of one of those teams or don't have a lot of money, like if you put $5 on the game, I'm sorry, you don't need to watch the game. You're nuts. You're a psychopath. I love football. That is one of those games where I don't think any human being will ever talk about it ever again. Watching Mac Jones and Will Levis, it was 3-0 at halftime. This morning's slate was tough. This morning's slate really was, especially coming off all the college games. We had the SEC championship go to overtime. We had the Oregon Penn State game, which was awesome in the second half, and we had the ACC championship game, which was pretty incredible. It had a walk-off, whatever, 55-yard field goal to then go to like Bucks Raiders. You're like, I'm trying to get into this. Is this? It's like Eagles Carolina, who it is the craziest part about wide receivers. No matter their shape or size, they could be small, skinny guys. They could be tall, big guys. It does not matter. They all come back to the same human being. The Eagles have won 9 straight games, tying a record in the franchise. If they win next week, which is a tough game against Steelers, they will break a franchise record for 10 straight wins. That's an incredible accomplishment. If you win like 5 straight games in the NFL, you're going to be in pretty good shape. Because most time you're over under 500 by a game or two. So if you go on a 5-game winning streak, you're more than likely to be 6, 7 games over 500. You go on a 9-game winning streak, you're whatever, 11-2. I mean, it's just, you're in cruise control. Yet after the game, A.J. Brown, who is highly paid, who is one of Jalen's best friends. Listen, the Eagles passing game isn't very good. It isn't very good. Jalen Hurts is not exactly Herbert or Mahomes from the pocket. That's not the way he's going to play. And they haven't really had to because Saquon is dominating. Saquon is headed for a 2,000-yard season. Usually when you have a 2,000-yard rusher, you're going to have a lot of passing performances that the guy's number is going to start with a 1, 150, 160, 120, because the other guy's going for 180, 200 yards. And for A.J. Brown, depending on what tweet or Instagram you see, some headlines are a little salacious, but like he's just kind of acting like a diva. Like the whole point of this is to win. And the whole point of a player is to be a winning player and a productive player and get paid. Well, he's been a winning player, he's been a productive player, and he's literally paid really high. Yet the moment you don't get the ball as a wide receiver, they all do this. They start moping. It's like, isn't the whole, like you guys are in incredible position. Like you are in position to literally compete to win the Super Bowl. It's crazy. I don't get it. But he's not alone. This happens to them all. It's like a character trait of them. Maybe because they're isolated out there. I know cowards always have the theory they're like the NBA player of football. But how could you be mad? Like, who cares? You're running some routes, you're winning games, you're netting a couple $1 million per game. Life is good. I tell you about my friends at No Days Wasted. Here's the thing. It's the holidays. You're going to parties. You're having friends over. You're drinking a lot. You're having a few cocktails, and then you're usually having a few more. Here's the thing. You're having some friends over. You're going to a party. You have a few cocktails. You put one of these in your pockets, No Days Wasted, and after a drink or two, you take these 2 pills. Boom. Keep drinking. Next day, much easier to bounce back. Because we know as we get older, you just get not quite feeling yourself the next day. That's where these guys come in, No Days Wasted. They also have hydration packets. Big believer in them. Usually the first thing I do when I wake up, pour one in a big glass of water. Also, if I'm going to go out, boom, pour one of those. Also with the pills, wake up the next day, ready to attack the day. So don't waste time feeling sluggish after a night out. No one wants that feeling. Nobody. It's completely risk-free, purchase-free, great, or your money back on your first order. Head to nodayswasted.com/3and out and use the code 3and out to get 30% off your first order. That's nodayswasted.com, the number 3, ANDOUT to get 30% off your first order. It's nodayswasted.com/3and out for 30% off and free shipping. One game that actually I was excited to watch in the morning window was Falcons, Minnesota, which I think was the best game on paper and one of the more entertaining games till about the fourth quarter. And in that game, Cousins, who now has not thrown a touchdown in 4 straight games, and I think has 7 or 8 interceptions over that period of time. He had 2 interceptions today. And is just playing bad football. He does not look good. Some people in the NFL, I was texting during the college games. We ended up talking about NFL stuff. Some people think he's cooked. And I think if you've watched them the last couple of weeks, you could come to that conclusion. I remember a former GM told me about a quarterback they signed. This is, probably 15, 20 years ago when the guy was running a team, and he signed an older quarterback. And he said, you know what, John? In training camp, the guy looked like his former, Pro Bowl self. And then the first month of the season, I was like, we might have had the signing of the offseason. He's like, but you know what happened? As the season went on, his 36, 37-year-old body started to show. And he slowly became one of the worst players in the NFL. And it was a disaster. And I do wonder if Cousins, coming off this injury early on in the season, once he kind of got his footing, looked solid, looked good, made some plays. Falcons were decent. And then as time went on, his age kind of caught up to him. Because remember, he hurts his Achilles last year with 6-7 weeks to go, 5-6 weeks. Does not do anything all off season up until training camp. So he's kind of fresh. Well, now he's not fresh anymore. And he's looking old. And then Greg Olsen, as he's throwing interceptions, it's kind of unraveling. Their season's literally unraveling. They've lost 4 straight games. They're 6-7. They're not even in first place in their division. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are. And it kind of comes up like, should they go to Penix? Is it time? And Greg Olsen's like, yeah, I don't think they will turn on him this fast. Turn on him this fast? We're December 8th. We've lost 4 straight games. This is not a player that has any equity with anybody. He has no equity with the fans. He has no equity with these coaches. Raheem Morris literally said, when asked, why is your coaching staff so big? He said, because we're going to win. And when you win in this league, your coaches get poached. And we want to have backup coaches on our staff. So when our coaches get poached, we don't have to retrain guys, which in theory makes a lot of sense. The problem is no one's poaching anyone from the Atlanta Falcons. They fucking suck. And the Minnesota Vikings, on the flip side, you saw a quarterback who looks like he's coming into his own. Sam Darnold looks like a $40 million quarterback in the NFL. Threw 5 touchdowns today, scrambled around, makes huge plays, throws the ball downfield. The Vikings' 2 best players constantly get the ball because Sam can get them the ball. And we talked about the worst contract in the history of sports for the NFL, Deshaun Watson. You could say one of the great moves in recent business in football is letting Cousins walk off an Achilles for $100 million that you didn't have to give him, to then sign Sam Darnold for $10 million. So if you just look at it purely on guaranteed money, you guarantee him 10, Cousins gets 100. That's a $90 million difference. And your guy, you are whatever you are, 12-2. 12-2, that'd be 3 games. You're 11-2. And he has thrown 28 touchdowns. And you currently are right behind Detroit, who's having the greatest season they've ever had. You're 1 game back. And they play this week the Bills. And you play them the last game of the season. So if you can just hold serve, like, you got a shot. And Sam Darnold right now has to be on the short list of best quarterbacks in the NFC. He's playing fantastic. And when you just watch him play, like, I just don't see how you let this guy walk. He's 27 years old. He's got a huge arm. He can move. He's clearly a high character guy. He knows your offense. Okay, it's always my thing with interceptions. Like, oh, he throws some picks. Well, does he make up for it? Well, yeah, he's got a 3-to-1 interception ratio. Well, I'll live with that all day long. It's one thing if you throw 12 interceptions, you only throw 22 touchdowns. Like, that's a problem. If you throw 15 interceptions, like, damn, that's a lot. Well, I also throw 40 touchdowns. Like, oh, I can live with that. I can win with that. So at this point in time, Atlanta is insane to let Cousins go down with the ship. Anyone that's watched baseball, like, it's time to go to the bullpen. And if you're listening to this on the podcast version, I'm tapping my left arm. It's time to go to the lefty. What do you got to lose now but more games? Like, you can't function with this guy. Is Michael Penix going to be awesome if you just insert him right now? I'm not saying that. But you can't keep rolling this out. You cannot. And this was the dumb part about this whole scenario. Of like, well, when we think Penix is ready, we'll just ship Cousins out. ship Cousins out. One, he's got a no trade clause, and two, he averages like $40+ million a year. Find me a team that could watch the last 4 games of a 36, 37-year-old who has always been a polarizing player and now feels like his arrow is pointed straight into the ground, is going to trade to give you a 6th-round pick for this guy to pay him that much money. If you told me Cousins made $11 million, okay, yeah, someone would take a. He makes $40+ million next year. Who is trading for that guy? Like, it was just this move. It was a head scratcher at the time when they did their situation. It just feels it's backfired. I understood why they signed Cousins, pretty desperate, but like I think rule of thumb in the business world and just life, be very, very careful when you make deals out of desperation. Right? You're not always going to have total leverage. You're not always going to be Juan Soto doing a deal. But like, try to be able to have a little bit of levity. Try to be able to take a deep breath and just see the big picture. They did not. They were so desperate for a quarterback. Here's $100 million. And now we're 13 games into the season, and Cousins is killing them. Picture this. You're in the garage, your favorite room in the house. You're tuning up your engine with parts you found on eBay. Every piece is just locking perfectly into place. You step back to admire your work, hands covered in grease. And because you're committed to driving that thing further than the odometer can even handle, you start thinking to yourself, you know what? I could probably also use some new brakes, some shocks, and struts. This baby deserves a new air filter. So where do you go next? Back to eBay. You can find anything there. It's unreal. Wipers, headlights, even cold air intakes. It's all there. And you've got an eBay guaranteed fit. You order a part, and if it doesn't fit, send it back. Simple as that. Look, DIY fixes can be major. Doesn't matter if it's just maintenance or a major mod. You got it, especially when things are guaranteed to fit. So when you dive into your next car project, start with eBay. All the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. eBay, things people love. This has to be one of the better comeback stories in recent memory because of how bad this guy was when he played. Like, there is no way to watch this guy. Let's even throw away his rookie year. Let's just watch early on this season. You had to have the thought, like, is Bryce Young going to be out of the NFL? Like, is Bryce Young not an NFL player? If you had that statement or that conversation with somebody, if you just watched a half of them somewhere in the first 3 or 4 weeks, you would not have been crazy. That was the only conversation to really have. Like, it's crazy how awful this player is. This version that we have seen since he's come back after Andy Dalton got in the car accident, I thought, like, the first couple weeks, like, oh, fun story. Like, today, I thought he was good today. His ability to, like, scramble around and make plays, this is what Sam Darnold is doing such a good job of. Obviously, as a quarterback, you got to be able to sit there and hit basic passes. A wheel route, an out route, a slant route. Just be able to do basic football things at the NFL level. So sit in the pocket, couple steps, boom, hit a guy. Or get the ball out and put it in position where the guy can catch it, right? Then it's on the receiver, get open, all that stuff. But you got to be able to do that. Welcome to football. A lot, I would say half your passing attempts, especially on second and third and long, you're going to be moved around a little bit. Whether one of your offensive line gets smoked and you kind of got to scramble, or you just naturally have to move out of the pocket to keep a play alive. And you're watching him play right now, and you're going, this little dude is a playmaker. We saw no shades of this. And today he made a winning throw. He made a throw that should have won them the game. And Xavier Legette, who's got one of the great accents in the history of humans, who also had a couple drops today, just dropped the ball. Which, I kind of looked like a catch, looked like a drop. The ball definitely hit the ground. Did he have full control of it? They called it essentially, they called it an incompletion that he dropped the ball. But Bryce hit him in the hands. And if he catches that ball, like, the Panthers win the game. And it's no shame, one, if you're the Eagles being in a game with the Panthers. They're literally in the game with everyone. And whenever I hear someone say like, and this was talked about all year long, oh, it's like they got the Panthers as one of their last games. Well, yeah, 4 or 5 weeks ago, that was a lock W. Like they're a real team right now, and it's because of him. And I don't know what happened. I don't know if the lights, some light went off in his head, whether he just gained his confidence. Maybe he stopped giving a shit whatever other people thought. Maybe he just kind of relaxed. Maybe he just said, screw it. I'm just going to go back to my Alabama days and just play, not think. I have no clue. But whatever he did, whatever they did to infuse some of this belief, like this guy looks like a real player. I mean, this guy looks like someone you can compete to win games with. So I think he deserves the most credit because people can try to give you confidence, people can build you up, but eventually you got to go out there and do it. And right now he's doing that, and little fucker's making some plays. He's fun to watch. Today the Giants, whenever this happens, it's usually the end for everyone involved except the guy that owns the team, whether it's usually in baseball or football because it's an outdoor arena, and someone rents a little puddle jumper and they print something behind it and the thing flies over the stadium. And today, before the Giants game, where they lost again, they flew a plane that said, "Please, Mr. Mara, fix this dumpster fire." And at first I said, well, this is typical. Have seen this before. Like when I was in the Bay Area, it happened in I think the Jim Tom Sula year. It happens when things are going really bad. And then I started thinking, who in New York talks like that? Please, Mr. Mara, fix this dumpster fire. If I found someone from Queens or, Long Island or Jersey, some big Giants fan, not in a million years would they talk like that. Fans don't talk like that. That feels, you know my theory on this? John Mara paid for that. John Mara had that up there because it's been well reported. John Mara does not want to fire these guys. He doesn't want to. And I understand, like, he doesn't, going through a search has to be the big pain in the ass. And he hired these guys because he believed in them. They were a big part of the Buffalo Bills regime that turned the franchise around. I believe in you guys. And it couldn't be going any worse. They lost today to the Saints, a team that also sucks 14-11. I mean, the Giants are really, really rough watch. Their offensive line is horrendous. Whenever I looked up, they were on one of the boxes. I kept seeing Joe Shane. He was sitting there in the box, like with his binoculars, like he's a scout. He's scouting around. It's like, Joe, I can't imagine. One thing I would never miss about working in the NFL, when you're part of just a god-awful team and you have to pretend like we got a chance. Like, no, we got no chance to beat anybody. Honestly, we might not be able to beat Ohio State, Notre Dame, or Oregon right now. We stink. And I got blood on my hands as the guy that built this thing. So Joe Shane, I think John Mara is making it look so ugly. Again, this is just theory I'm throwing out there. That it makes it a little easier. Like, look, fans are turning on me. They're buying planes. I know this. If I had the means, and who knows, I have no clue what it would cost to pay that puddle jumper to fly around for an hour before the game. Maybe it's not as expensive as you think. Maybe it costs a couple grand. But maybe it's 50 grand. I have no clue. I wouldn't even know where to start. But John would. He knows a lot of people in aviation. Why? He hasn't been to a commercial airport probably in his entire life. And if you're him, you want to make it look even worse. That's why I go back to that video that came out this offseason of him sitting there saying I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. Well, if Joe Shane and Dayball had the final say on everything, in what world, if you were in their shoes, would you look at the guys at NFL Films and be like, yeah, leave that on there. Yeah, put HBO, yeah, give it to them. Just let them play that to the world. Yeah, that's gonna play well. That's a good idea. Oh, of me laughing? That Saquon's not going to the Eagles. He's not going to the Eagles with a smile. In what world, if you were Joe Shane, would you have given the thumbs up? I felt, and I've said it from the moment that I started watching that show, that felt like John Morrow wanted some of that stuff out there. Like, hey, listen, I'm trying to be the good guy. I'm not, Al Davis in 2008. I'm not trying to fire people every couple of years. But listen, I screwed up. And I might have to do it again. So you guys are all going to call me, loony now that every couple years I'm just fire. I don't want to. I'm trying to hire the right guy, but I keep hiring the wrong people, and I want you to see the incompetence I'm dealing with right now. I told him, I spoke for all you guys. I won't be able to sleep. My guy Middlekauff up in Lake Tahoe while he's recording a podcast said Saquon's going to shatter records this year. He's going to dominate. And everyone on social media told those guys at the volume, Middlekauff, this guy's an idiot. Oh, come on, he's going to dominate. Yeah, he is. And now he might be headed toward like Eric Dickerson and Barry Sanders records. I didn't think it was going to be that good, but holy shit. Just broke LaShawn McCoy's record. December 8th. I just wonder if John Mara is the guy throwing kerosene on this fire, because he does not want to look like an idiot. And anytime you fire people over and over, people are just going to say that it's you. And it might be, but I do think he's trying to do the right thing. I understood why he hired those two guys. It has not worked. The GM is completely over his head. The team sucks. I mean, they are terrible. I saw a clip, I think on YouTube, of Brian Baldinger. I don't know, did he call into like Rich Eisen's show, or I don't know where maybe I saw it on Instagram, where he's like, listen, I played offensive line. I'm not trying to be this raging, you-know-what a-hole here, but I think the game that Evan Neal played against the Dallas Cowboys is the worst game I've seen played by any player this year in the NFL. And this is the guy that watches all 22 every game, every week. And he's like, listen, I'm not, I had some cut-ups. I didn't even put him out on Twitter because I'm not trying to be that guy. I'm not trying to kick a guy when he's down. Maybe he's just injured. But this guy is the worst player currently in the NFL playing. I mean, he played the worst game I've seen this year by any offensive lineman. That's what they're rolling out. So I think the Giants got issues, and I think John Mara knows it. And I think he's trying to set up a situation where he can fire everybody and almost make it look worse before the offseason even starts. Couple quick things on college football. We did a video reaction on Saturday night after the championship games. We now have the bracket, which I'll get me and intern Jackson will go over on Tuesday and break it down. I mentioned this to Colin. I think anyone with a brain agrees. There is no reason, I mean none, to go college basketball style. You're locked into your bracket, right? Which in college basketball can be awesome. If there's a huge upset and you're a team and you get a shittier team, you get a huge break. In football, use the NFL, we reseed. So if you're the number 1 overall seed and the 7 seed upsets the 2 seed, you play them in the next round. You're not locked into a bracket. And I think when you look at this bracket, that Oregon, who had the best season this year in college football, they're the only team that did not lose a game. They beat 2 of the best teams in the country in Ohio State and Penn State. And they beat Penn State essentially as a road game on Saturday night in Indianapolis. And they were up big before Penn State kind of rallied a comeback. For them having to play the winner of Ohio State and Tennessee, while Boise and Arizona State, you could argue, get easier games, to me is insane. What Oregon should get is whoever is the lowest seed remaining after the first round games. That's who they should play and not be locked into a bracket. So before we get into all the other stuff, that has to happen. And the other thing is, Alabama, I have no problem with them not making the tournament, though I do believe that the SEC is in a different universe than the ACC. So saying, I got 3 losses, you got 2 losses, you got 1 loss in the regular season, I got 3. I am playing so many more NFL players on a weekly basis than you are. Honestly, it's not even close. So us trying to compare, how do you do that? Well, it's pretty easy in the NFL. Like the Atlanta-Minnesota game, the Steeler-Bengal game, we all view it kind of as equals, even though some records are better. It's all hard. That's not the case in college football. And if I ran the ACC and I was George Sankey, Like, listen, we and really Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State rating for the Big Ten in Michigan are carrying this sport. Our games do by far the biggest numbers. And unlike the NFL, where we're all under the same umbrella, so if I'm the Raiders or I'm the Patriots and I suck, and you're the Chiefs and you're the Lions and your games are doing Sunday night and Monday night and huge primetime games, we're all in the same world. We're all profiting from it equally. That's not the way college works. Like the SEC, we make different money than the ACC, than the Big Ten. We're all kind of independent that way. And then we get huge raises or huge bonuses based on the college football playoffs. If I'm the SEC moving forward, like everyone's arguing right now, why play tough games anymore, which they're basically talking about out of conference games when the reality is Alabama didn't make the playoffs because they lost to Vanderbilt in Oklahoma. You're just trying to make an excuse. But I would say I need a guarantee amount of teams every single year because the sport is being put on our backs. Google the ratings this year. The reason for this explosion in interest in our sport really started with Saban the last 15 years, but now is being carried by us, these night games for ESPN, which is one of the great television deals probably since like 1993 when Fox bought the NFL. But I can't have one more team than the ACC. Like, that shit ain't going to fly for me. So we either figure this out or fuck, we'll go our own way. Because this is not good business for us. And you need us more than we need you. And you guys all know that. So I think Greg Sankey, like, we got to figure some things out. And this is where I think the Big Ten and the ACC start going, we need guarantees how many teams we're getting in every year. And ideally, it'd be unwritten, but if we got to get in writing and let the world know, we don't care. Because this sport doesn't function without us. That big noon game, which is mainly Ohio State this year, and all the SEC games are the games that are rating. No one is watching Miami play North Carolina. Nobody is watching Utah play Kansas State relative to those games. So, like, are we all in this together? Kind of not really. But where we make our huge, huge money is these playoffs. And we can't carry the sport for 3 months to then get asked out at the end. For the ACC, where Clemson, Florida State, and Miami and North Carolina would leave in a New York minute to join the SEC, so fast your head would spin, but they have some crazy deal that they can't even buy out of. They want no part of it because they know this is where the cash flows. But then when it's time to get our big bonuses, we get screwed. You can see problems in the headwind coming. And right now they can't technically do anything because I think, in fairness to them, they were so cocky and arrogant that they thought for sure, they probably thought they were going to get 5 teams. And then dust settles and they only get 3. And you got a school like Indiana and the Big Ten getting an extra school. It's got to piss them off. And usually when you're pissed off in business, and this is not something that you're just going to get over in a couple days, it's going to create change. And you watch, I bet the SEC, it's one thing to make a stink, like putting out press releases and tweet. It's another thing to like, we're going to need a change on this or we're out. And I would expect something bold to happen like this offseason. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you tomorrow after the Monday Night Football game. It's the Cowboys and the Bengals, I think. Yeah, Cowboys, Bengals. So should be Bengals, maybe. Could be the Browns. I guess the Browns play today. I don't know. Don't really care. But I'll see you after the Monday night game. Have a great day. See you.